Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Massucci, and today we got another edition of the show. Today it is a draft show, and we are going to talk about Peterson versus Dybantsa. This was a topic that I really wanted to discuss on my Reaction Monday podcast. I wasn't able to lock in enough on the game live, and then I rewatched the game. I watched a ton of film breakdowns. I listened to a ton of podcasts, and I feel prepared enough to talk about it and really focus in on each of these guys. I was down like a content rabbit hole, it seemed like, with these two guys because of just how talented they are. So, in this podcast, we're going to focus on first their game against each other and how they looked. I talked about Peterson first, and then I went into Dybantsa. And then we're going to switch to strengths and weaknesses. We focused on Dybantsa's strengths and some of his weaknesses, what's going to lead well into the NBA, what's not. And then we switched over to Peterson with strengths and weaknesses. So that's going to be the show. So without further ado, I'm going to cue the music. All right, let's get right into it. Dybantsa versus Peterson. So this game was just a crazy game, flat out crazy game. It was something I was looking forward to throughout the whole year, really, and kind of seeing it happen. You almost forget it's like, man, both these teams are in the Big 12, which is really cool. So we'll be able to get to see them play against each other. So let's talk about it in Allen Fieldhouse. First of all, Fog Allen was packed, and it was so loud in that arena. Trust me, like I've been to Fog Allen, and it's one of the greatest places in college basketball. It's still my favorite arena that I've been in. And I sat down to watch that game, and holy cow, the crowd was just going absolutely bananas throughout the whole game. And I was like, man, like this is just a crazy environment. It's packed, it's loaded, the crowd's going crazy. This is going to be an unbelievable game. And the cool thing is right off the jump, right when the game started, Dybansta is right there, ready to go. He's guarding Peterson, and I'm like, man, this is going to be fun. So let's talk about it a little bit. I'm going to give you some takeaways from what I saw with Peterson and what I saw from Dybansta in this game. So Peterson here, he hadn't played in a while. The last game he played against was Colorado, where he had 16 points. So he hadn't played in about like 11 days. And you're playing BYU and you're wondering, okay, like how many minutes is he going to play? How good is Peterson going to look? Blah, blah, blah. And then we see like first possession of the game, Dybantsa's on him, all that stuff. And Peterson had some unbelievable plays throughout this game. And throughout the game, throughout the jump, he was awesome. He scored 18 points in this game, shot 75% from the field, and was all over the place throughout the whole game. Some plays that really stood out to me, he had an unbelievable anticipation play to start the game where he got a steal and led to a fast break layup. Throughout the game, I saw like he had moments where like he was a little nonchalant on defense. He'd have moments where like off ball, it'd be like, okay, what are we doing here? You know, he's not stuck to his man, especially with Saunders and some of the screens. He'd struggle to stay with Saunders, and Saunders would have some easy catch and shoot threes. And that's something I've noticed with both Peterson and Dybantsa. I think it was clearly on display when he gets switched on to Saunders and stuff like that, especially when you're against a shooter. Like it's really, you can't lose focus at all. And especially with these guys that have so much offensive focus on them, you'll see them lose focus here. And I saw it a couple times with Peterson throughout the game. But at the beginning of the game, he was just so hot. Like immediately scored on Dybansta, beating him off the dribble. And then right after that, he goes and hits a transition three, and you're like, man, like this is going to be a fun game. The thing that really stood out for me was his ability to shoot off the catch and shoot. Like he had a couple motion plays where he had one corner three where he's coming off some floppy action, and then immediately gets right into the 1-2 hop and hits a three. And I'm like, man, like your ability to play off ball too, like that just means that you're going to be able to walk into the NBA and immediately be a high level scorer. I mean, it was just super impressive. The thing that's been curious with Peterson, I think people have asked a lot of questions. It's like, okay, how good are you going to be as a passer? How good are you going to be off the screen and roll? And there was one pass that he had at the 740 mark where he skipped it to the corner, and it was just like, like immediately hit the screen. He stops, and then you see the tag defender come up, and then he immediately skips it to the corner, and the guy has a wide open three. Like I saw this play, and I was like, okay, if he's able to do this at the NBA level at a consistent rate, like we're seeing like star potential from that, because that ability to be able to skip it, that shows you that he has the passing ability to be able to make things happen. And I really like, it's just super scary if you're able to have those passes with the amount of scoring that they are able to do. Speaking of his scoring, one of the moves that he had, he got to the mid range, and then you see him like just move his feet so beautifully with his jump shot, and he hit it, and I was like, holy cow, he's just awesome when he's able to do that. And then the burst with him, it's really the burst. Like you'll see it off the screen, like he'll be dancing a little bit, and then when he decides to go straight downhill, it's so tough to guard. I mean, those were the main things that kind of stood out to me with Peterson. Like he had plenty of plays where you were like, okay, there's a little nonchalantness on defense. There's some shots where it's like, why are you shooting this shot? But overall, it was just an unbelievable game. One thing on defense that I want to add before we move into Dybansta in this game, that I really thought was huge for if you're looking at him as a defender in the next level. He showed defensive IQ early in the second half when there was one play where he just got completely sealed by Keita, and Keita scored on him. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a size thing, like that's not the greatest thing. And then the next play, he switches over to front him and immediately just takes it away. Like that's a big time play. That's big time IQ. And I thought that was a big thing to see from Peterson. This game just showed you why Peterson is clearly like that guy. On paper, it's always been okay, like Peterson has all of the tools to be successful. Now, can he stay on the floor? And, the past couple games, you're seeing him really show up and really like score at high will. He had a great game against Texas Tech the last game, 19 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. He's been playing great ball, and especially in this game against AJ Dybansta, it was really, really impressive coming out the gates. Okay, let's talk about Dybansta. I was listening to a podcast before this game, and they were talking about how like ready Dybansta was to play in this game. These guys have played multiple times in high school, and a lot of people said that Peterson had the edge. That's part of the reason why NBA draft scouts and the people making big boards all over the place had always had Peterson one over Dybansta before the year started. So, everybody knew that this was going to be a big time game. And apparently, right after the Utah win, right after Dybansta scored 42 points, Matt Norlander reported that right away he returned to the locker room and started watching Kansas film right after the game, which that is just big time. That's big time. That's something I love. I love somebody that has that competitiveness to be like, okay, like I got to watch film straight away and be able to have this and be ready for this game. Um, One thing he's known for, Norlander went on to talk about it. He's really known for being self-critical after poor performances. So this stretch for him kind of concerns me, and I'm wondering if that will be like a consistent thing with him. BYU's lost 4 of their last 5 games, and it's not like he's been playing the greatest. Against Arizona, he really didn't play well. I actually thought he had moments in this Kansas game, which we'll go over in a second, where he actually looked really good. He made good reads off of double teams, and I'll continue to talk about it in a little bit. But being extremely self-critical has its pluses and minuses. It means like you're holding yourself to a very high standard. He's known as a film junkie, so he's always in the film room and he's always trying to get better. Those are a few things where I'm just like, okay, this is what scouts want. That's a lot of the stuff I'm looking for. I love the leadership qualities and things of that nature. And we'll definitely go into that stuff as these draft shows continue. Me trying to zero in on that stuff and be like, okay, will this lead to development? How does it lead to development? Stuff like that. That I'm really interested in. And Dybansta is clearly a guy that needs development, and I'll go over it in a little bit. We'll talk about that stuff. But holding yourself to a high standard, it's got its pluses and minuses, and this was a big time game. So let's get into his performance in this game. Um, you know, Especially early in the game, I think Asher, who comes on the show all the time for college basketball, he texted me and he was like, Dybansta not shooting a shot already. This was about 8 minutes into the game. Dybansta not shooting a shot yet in this game is absolutely crazy. And he's 100% right. But Kansas clearly had a game plan where they were ready to go to Dybansta. Before the game, they were talking about how, like BYU was prepping. Dybansta went right into the film room, blah, blah, blah. Well, Kansas was doing the same stuff. They had 6 full days off to get ready for this game, and they were ready to go. They had a clear game plan for Dybansta, which was really like plugging the lanes and forcing him to either kick or take tough mid-range shots. And they got him into the right stages. Like, it was really tough for him. Especially early in the game. You'd see him pick up the ball early before and try to use his strides. He tries to do this a lot, and it really wasn't great for him. Those strides, it led him to losing the ball a few times, and it led him to getting into tough mid-range shots where you're like, man, those aren't the shots that we need right now, you know? I actually thought every time that Kansas plugged the lane or sent a double at him, Dybansta was making the right plays. He had a couple of great passes in the first half to Rob Wright and to Keita down low. That's a big plus for me. I think he's starting to see the game. The game's starting to slow down a little bit. There were some bad shots, of course, like I was talking about, the mid range. And he hit 1 3, and then right away you're seeing him try to shoot a movement 3, which just clearly isn't in his game right now. And the thing that concerns me a little bit here is I feel like he's predetermining his decisions a lot. Like he'll decide right away, oh, I'm going straight to the drive. Going straight to the mid range pull up. Oh, next play, I'm going to try to lob Keita down the end, like right away, when it almost wasn't there and it got tipped around. It wasn't a great play for him, and it wasn't really an accurate pass either. There's a lot of stages where Dybansta where you're seeing him kind of like predetermine those things. And overall, it's just like, okay, there's a lot with Dybansta that everybody loves. He's got all the tools. He's a big guy. He's versatile. He's doing all those things. But now it's like, all right, when is he going to be able to put it together? And I feel like a lot of people are asking those questions, and I feel like that's why a lot of people are dropping him on their board. So let's talk about some strengths and weaknesses for each of these guys. We'll focus on Dybansta a little bit more. To start. Like I was saying, he's super long and his wingspan's awesome. He's 6'9" with a 7-foot plus wingspan, and that's why everybody loves him, and that's why everybody will be believing him. Like I said, an elite slasher. He really gets to the hole really well, and that was part of Kansas's game plan. They were all over him. There were so many people packing the paint and forcing Dybansta to pass the ball off. They were forcing Saunders to have a big game. They were forcing Rob Wright to do stuff. Their goal was to not let Dybansta get inside, and Kansas did a great job of that. He's really comfortable playing off 1 or 2 feet, which I really like. Especially at Oakland, we really focus on, okay, 2-foot jump stop, pump fake, figure it out, and then finish in the hole. When I'm looking at NBA prospects, if you're able to do both, I don't mind it, because there are going to be a lot of stages where, yes, you got to finish off 1 foot. In college, I do like it when people are playing off 2. I think Peterson actually plays better off 2 than Dybansta, because Dybansta likes to use his strides. When you're that big and long, the strides work, But also with Dybansta, his handle is not the greatest thing in the world. So I almost think he'd do better if he's playing off two even more. And that's something I'm looking at for Dybansta, but he can play off 1 or 2 feet really well. He's super flexible, which is a really good thing. Sam Facini talks about this all the time, where if you're really flexible and able to get down, that means that you have like a good burst, and also your ball handling can really improve, you know? And right now, I don't think Dybansta's ball handling is that great, but I think him being able to be flexible will allow him to be able to develop it, be able to get in the right spots where people want it. A lot of people are worried about Cam Boozer where he's not that flexible, so they're worried about the handle going into the pros. That's just an example of flexibility and non-flexibility. Dybansta, we're talking about strengths here. I mean, he's great mid-range scorer, just a great mid-range scorer. We talked about it a lot in episode 129, where he was just finishing games with some sensational mid-range shots, especially against UConn, and the other game was Clemson, where he was just hitting some insane mid-range shots. Like he's going to walk in the league and be an elite scorer from that mid-range area. And that's something that really impressed me. Like his jump shot, it gets a higher release when he does that. There's just so much good when you're talking about his strength from the mid-range. And that's something where it's like, if you're going to be a superstar, if you're going to be an elite volume scorer, you got to have that mid-range package. And I think Dybansta immediately has that right now. I talked about pull-up shooting and all of that stuff. The passing is something interesting with him. I really do think he passed the ball very well against Kansas, and the double team reads have been a lot better. He has moments where he's hitting guys on the weak side and making good passes, but there's also moments where he's trying to do too much with his passing. I talked about Keita's the lob to Keita and him predetermining decisions. So if he can get out of the predetermination and go back to, oh, double teams here, we got to just find the right guy, and do that, then I think the passing will be able to move up. I like him as a passer. I just want to see a little less predetermination and more, okay, he's getting the ball to a guy in the right spot. Again, really versatile defender. He can switch. He's mobile. He's a solid rim protector from the weak side. There's things defensively that we'll get into when we get into weaknesses that I want him to improve on, but the versatility is what everybody loves. And if you believe that he's a guy that can 100% get better, then, you're going to absolutely love his defensive upside. And a lot of the time I'm looking for versatility. He 100% has that. Okay, weaknesses, 3-point shooting. Like, he's not going to be a great movement shooter. You can just tell with his release. So his feet get all whacked. He can't get the ball up to his high release point from the mid-range that he has from the mid-range. And on the 3-point shot, it's just not as high and it's not as fluent. So his 3-point consistency just hasn't been the greatest so far in college this year. If you're looking at the percentage, he's only shooting 35.9% this year. So that's something I'm looking for. I think he's a good enough shooter, but it's going to need to be, okay, it's a catch and shoot wide open three. It can't be, oh, he's running off a floppy action and making plays happen. That's where it's like, okay, he's good 3-point shooter, but it's not like where we want it to be yet. When he drives, again, really, really good driver, but he does struggle with absorbing contact. Like, he'll go at shorter people and then you'll see them kind of rough him off his spots. I talked about it during the Kansas game. Like, there were times where he had Peterson and he had, I believe it was White, and he drove them and tried to use his strides. And then the guards quick enough to kind of get him to beat him to the spot. So then Dybansta has to move into a mid-range shot. That's, again, the predetermination stuff that I talked about. So that's something he can definitely improve on there. Defensively, screen navigation is not great. I talked about it with Caleb Wilson a little bit. He's kind of similar where he'll get kind of stuck on the screen. And Peterson had a couple plays where he was able to make him hit the screen, and then Peterson would use his burst to go right by. And that's something I really think Dybansta needs to improve on because he's so versatile. He's so great on the perimeter that when you get hit, you can't just get out of the play. You need to be able to make things happen. And that's something I think he can improve on. And then defensive focus, like I talked about with Peterson, he can be inconsistent with his effort, particularly off the ball. I don't think he's the greatest defender yet. And again, these are just inconsistencies. They're young guys at the end of the day. Hopefully those can improve. But a lot of the time you're like, okay, come on. Like you got to be there on this play or something like that. Okay. Let's move into Peterson here. Um, Again, Peterson has just been really a stud throughout the whole year, every time he's played. The question with him has always been the health. Can you stay on the floor? And it's been really difficult for him throughout the year. And there's been multiple different injuries stuff with him. That's what makes it so hard figuring out, okay, who is the number one player on the big board, And that's the question you guys are all listening or watching, trying to figure out. That's what I'm trying to figure out also. But what I'm trying to figure out more is how do I value injuries within this, because I think on paper and on film, Peterson is the better prospect, 100%. I love Dybansa's ability to grow, and that's part of the reason why I'm still considering putting Dybansta ahead of Peterson. Right now, I have flip-flopped them. I have put Peterson 1 and Dybansta 2 because Peterson on film has just looked so much better, and I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt on the injury front. With Dybansta, it's like, okay, I think he's going to grow. I think he's going to be an elite player when he walks into the NBA, and he's looking to grow. But there's just stages where I feel like he needs to improve. Now with Peterson, he's going to walk into the NBA. I mean, Vicini said it when I was listening to him. He's going to walk into the NBA and average 20 points a game. It's just the truth. He is that good of a player. And that's the thing that we're going to kind of discuss when we go over strengths and weaknesses. So let's do it. Some of his strengths, again, he's 6'6", near a 6'10" wingspan. He can play the 1 to the 3. He's just an elite guard. The thing that I talked about a lot within that BYU game is the quick twitch burst. Like he'll be dancing with you and then he'll hit a screen and then burst right by you. I mean, he had that unbelievable poster dunk against BYU, and the blow-bys off the dribble are just ridiculous. It's so much explosion there, and it's really impressive. That explosion reminds me of Anthony Edwards. I think Bryce Simon said it when I was listening to him, but he kind of talked about how Peterson looks like a lot of people would describe him as like an Anthony Edwards if you were comparing to someone. He kind of sees more of a Devin Booker because he's able to get in such good scoring positions with his mid-range game. I like that. I like a mixture of both. And again, like comparisons, they're good, but they're not like the greatest thing because you're trying to compare these guys to stars when it could just not work out. You never know what's going to happen. Okay. Another strength, he attacks the paint with scoring intent and seeks contact at the rim. Again, I'm always looking for with the film, like, are you going into the guy? Are you trying to initiate that contact? And every time he's trying to initiate it. And I absolutely love that from any guard. And I think that's just really, really impressive. His handle is great. I talked about his change of pace. It's just ridiculous. Like those three things that I just said, those are 100% his strength. It's just the fluidity and his change of pace, man. It is just ridiculous. Um, for him too, the thing that I loved in this BYU game was the catch and shoot stuff. Like he is a lead in that front. I mean, I think he's shooting around like 47% just off catch and shoot shots alone. And this was after the BYU game, just for context. And again, this is going out. I'm recording this Thursday, February 5th. It's going out the next Tuesday. So this will be like a later. I'm sure the numbers will switch. But if you're shooting that percentage, I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. He's shooting 43.2% from 3 this year. He's just really a great catch and shoot player. And being able to do that, like, yes, he's coming off of floppy, he's coming off of all of that, but you can just fit into an NBA system right away. You don't have to be the number one scorer. If a if a good team just needs a guy that to add on to it, like he could fit in with the Thunder right away, and he wouldn't need to be the top scorer. Now, would the Thunder pick him? I don't know, but and that's the thing with injury concerns. Like, I don't know if the Thunder would want to deal with injury concerns, but the thing that shows me with the catch and shoot threes is like, okay, he could fit on a good team right away. He doesn't need the ball to succeed, which those are great tools to have when you're looking at NBA draft guys. Okay, some of the weaknesses here. It's kind of decision making mostly. I mean, he'll just try to pull up for three a little too much. You saw him hit like a really big time like dagger transition three against BYU. He tries to do this a lot. Like he had a couple of plays early in the season when I watched him against North Carolina where he tried some pull up threes. And I was like, I don't know if that's the best decision right now. It's just shot selection. It's like, okay, do we really need this shot right now? Are you really going to try a tough mid-range pull right now? Stuff like that when you haven't kind of let the offense develop here. Decision making, the reads. I think this was a main concern at the beginning of the year. I really loved what I saw from his decision making against BYU, which is really making me a lot higher on it right now as I'm recording. Could change later on. Decision making has been a little bit of a thing, but like his passing just continues to improve, especially from his senior year to prolific prep. Like he really kind of added that into his game. And that's where a lot of people were like, oh, he's almost just as good as Dybansta. Like the passing has just been ridiculous. And then looking at it now, like as a freshman, again, he's only averaging 1.8 assists, but it feels like he's making the right decisions. And do you want a little more? Probably, but he's also dealing with all these injuries and stuff. And when he needs to make the decisions, he's making the good decisions. So, um, yeah, and then defensively, it's inconsistently being physical. Yeah, he doesn't really check out great, and that's something that we really value at Oakland. So when I see people not check out great, I'm like, come on, what are we doing here? Like, let's figure this out. And then there's lapses on off ball scoring. I talked about that with Richie Saunders. He lost him a decent amount in that game. And that was some where I was just like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, you're better than this. Come on. So I mean, like looking at these guys, I'd say if you're looking at them neck and neck, Peterson's probably the better prospect here when you're looking at it on paper. Who has more potential? I actually think Dybantsa has more potential. Like he could be just an absolute star. And I like his ability to be known as a film junkie. And I'll try to get as much information to you guys on that as possible. I think right now what's separating them, and Vicini talked about this a lot, but it's really Peterson just does a much better job of keeping the handle alive than Dybansta. We talked about Dybansta trying to go with strides to the basket. Well, Peterson is able to get a little better with his probing. Like he started probing the defense and being like, okay, is this there? Is this not there? And then it leads into his decision making. Like Dybansta, if he was able to keep his dribble alive, would be so much better, and that's something I think he could 100% improve on. And I mean, Peterson's probably the most polished freshman guard in college basketball we've seen in a long time. Like he is just so good right now that it's super impressive. And I think that's part of the reason I would have Peterson 1 and Dybantsa 2. But these two guys, like it's so much fun having guys that are so close to each other. And I think these are clear 1-2 in the draft. And it's part of the reason I wanted to have a main just deep dive into each of these guys and what makes them tick. All right. That is going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, wherever you're at. Please go like, subscribe on YouTube. That is really helping. The YouTube channel is doing pretty well. So I'm excited about that. And then on Spotify, give us those 5 stars. It really, really does help out the show. So please, if you can, just follow, give us those 5 stars. It really helps. Looking at this week, Wednesday, we're hopefully going to have Marty Hannon for some Tigers baseball. There's been some big stuff going on. Again, I'm recording this Thursday, February 5th. So this is before I know anything about Skubal. There's supposed to be news coming out about Skubal. And then we got this big time ace that we got to talk about. So Marty will be coming on Wednesday. That's going to wrap up the show for today. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.